Another one of these figures, these historic figures that you hear a lot of, was Henry Wharton Shoemaker. And I mean, any casual reader of my column is going to be familiar with the name of Henry Wharton Shoemaker. He's one of my favorites. If you pick up any like 3 or 4 of my columns, you're likely to see Shoemaker no fewer than 8 times. I love writing about this guy. His stuff fascinates me. He was a writer and folklorist from Macklehack, and he traveled throughout this part of the state, gathering up people's stories and writing them down. You know, he would have people tell him these folklore stories, and you know, he'd describe to him what had happened, and then he'd go write them down and publish them in books. Now, it's no lie to say Shoemaker was a controversial figure. Some people have accused him of writing lies, of just making it up on his own. Shoemaker himself claimed that he wrote down what was told to him. And you know, I believe that. I think a lot of this issue can be solved by simply bumping the question of, was it a lie, up one generation. Shoemaker claimed he wrote down what was told, and maybe he didn't do a whole lot of fact checking, that was like his big crime, but he lists some of his sources in some of the books, and they were very definitely tellers of tall tales. Okay, for instance, Seth Nelson. Nelson was up around Katy Township. He was a panther hunter, and Nelson could really spin a tale. In various times, Nelson claimed to be immortal. He claimed to have lost his sight and recovered it through sheer willpower. He claimed to have survived a meteor shower, getting hit in the head with meteors, but it didn't hurt him at all because he was Seth frickin' Nelson, and he was just so tough. Now, the immortal part, as he's been buried up in the Nelsonville Cemetery since 1905, it's safe to say he's dead. But you never know about these unstoppable panther hunting types. But he was one of Shoemaker's sources. So listening to the tales from guys like that, I think, were the tales made up? Maybe. Was it Shoemaker who did it? Probably not. One of his stories, and he had many, one of them is the one I'm going to share with you, Old Writer's Ghost. Old Writer was this old lumberman, retired now, and there was a lumber camp with like a hotel in it down around Sugar Valley. Old Writer, this old guy, was a permanent resident of this hotel. He was always afraid of a ghost. He said one day there was going to be a ghost coming that he couldn't stop. So he would stay locked up in his room all day, and as the sun went down and it got darker, he would run around the hotel shouting, light the lamps, and he wanted it as bright as he could possibly get it. So he would make sure all the lamps up in his room and the hallway were all lit up all night, and then sit up all night waiting to defend himself from the ghost. One night, he didn't do that. And everybody began to be concerned. So they went up to check on him, and suddenly his door opened, and he just casually walked out, down the hall, and out the door into the dark. They ran into his room to see what had happened, and they found Old Writer's body lying dead on the bed, implying that he'd been killed by his own ghost, who could not be stopped. So that is kind of typical of one of the Henry Shoemaker stories. I didn't claim they made sense. Okay. But there were a lot of neat ones in Shoemaker's work, and it's why I'm such a big fan